That is that. Good morning. The following program is rated PG. The content is the sole responsibility of Alfred Roach and is not meant as a reflection of the Lakeshore Disability Network, its affiliates, or employees. The time is 5:01. My name is Red Kingman. Welcome to the internet world of Red's Place on the Lakeshore Disability Network. I'm your host, Red Kingman. Welcome to Wednesday. And it is so nice to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. A little chilly outside right now. In fact, what is the current temperature? 50 chilly degrees. Yeah, it's not going to warm up much beyond that. We'll be looking at Holland's hometown forecast in a moment. We'll also take a look at some sports this morning here in the internet world of Red's Place. And coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, I will have an interview with a gentleman who himself is a former morning DJ. He's also a former teacher. He's written a book, and he'll talk to us this morning about genealogy. I'm hoping that he can help me to find out where I came from, because it's real important for me to be able to put a little bitty stick pin somewhere on the map and say, that's where I was from, my people. So there we go. Should be a really nice time this morning. We'll be on from 5 until 8 a.m., so I hope you'll hang for the entire show. The internet world of Red's Place on the Lakeshore Disability Network. Now, one of the features of the internet program here is the fact that I can play music once again, and that was one of the things that I really missed from the old radio show. When we made the transition from music and information to news and information, I was very sad because I love music. I truly do. And many genres of music. I love classical. I love jazz. I love pop. But I'd have to say that my favorite would be oldies from the 60s, 70s. And because it's so long ago, we can throw the 80s in there as well. But the 60s, 70s primarily are where I like to stay. So this morning I thought we'd start off with something from the 60s. It's the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, and one of her biggest hits called Until You Come Back to Me, here on the internet world of Red's Place on the Lakeshore Disability Network.
Missing you.
Yes, the Queen of Soul from 1967 and Until You Come Back to Me. Let's keep the music going a little bit here with Steely Dan from the early 70s and Ricky. Don't lose that number. Here in the internet world of Red's Place on the Lakeshore Disability Network.
You could have scared yourself, you turn and run. But if you have a change of heart, Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody else. Send it off in a letter to yourself. It's the only one you want. You might use it if you feel better when you get home. I have a friend in town, he's heard your name. Driving on slow hand road. We could stay inside and play games, I don't know. And you could have a change of heart. Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody else. Send it off in a letter to yourself. Ricky, don't lose that number. It's the only one you want. You might use it if you feel better when you get home.
Lose that number. Yes, 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 from 1974 right there, Steely Dan and Ricky. Little Ricky, don't lose that number because if you do, you're not going to be able to get home this evening. You know, we don't have a designated driver and we're going to have to call the taxi. So, Ricky, don't lose that number. All right, it is 11 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on this 9th day of October. And I believe we need to take a look at some weather. All right. What on earth do we have for today? Let's see. Well, today is October 9th, 2013. I'm not sure what day of the year it is, and I'm not sure how many days are left, but I can tell you that Halloween is just around the corner. Now, if we start talking about averages, let's start with the average high temperature for this date. That would be 65 degrees, and the average low temperature is 46. Today we're looking for highs maybe in the 70s. Let's see what yesterday's high temp was. 72. The overnight low was 44. And if you go back to the year 2010, you will find that on this date we actually had a record high of 82 degrees. The record low was set on this date back in 2005. That would be 36 degrees. All right, this morning the sun rises at 7:51 a.m., and then that same sun will set this evening at 7:11 p.m. We have a barometric pressure of 30.23. That's giving us 80% humidity. The winds are relatively calm. They're out of the southeast at 6 miles per hour. Visibility is excellent, and you know it's fall when the wind chill is visible. And I see that we have a wind chill of 46 degrees. That is really, really cold. Not as cold as one would expect, though. All right, let's take a look at Holland's hometown forecast from weather.gov. Today, we can expect mostly sunny skies with highs in the low 70s. Tonight, the skies should remain clear with a low around 46. Thursday, more sunshine, highs in the low 70s. And on Friday, we'll begin the weekend with sunny skies and a high near 72. Very nice. Right now in the Tulip City, we're looking at 49 degrees under mostly clear skies. And if you ever need the latest forecast, well, just keep listening to the program. I'll give you the weather every 10 to 15 minutes, or you can log on to weather.com. All right, there we go for the weather. And I see that I've got someone on the old Facebook there. Listener friend Josh from the Critter Bard. He says good morning, so I'll say good morning, Josh. Can you log on to the podcast? And I'll give him the link. So there's no excuse. Yeah. All right, so again, you can connect with me via Facebook. Yeah, I have a fan page. Just go there. Red's Place. And you can also chat with me right on the Ustream service. There is a chat room there. And if you have my cell number, of course, you can always text me. Ta-da. And how else can we connect? Carrier pigeon. Yeah, just tie a little note, write the small note, tie it on the little leg of the bird, and then, all right, never mind. All right, politics. Lots of talk about the fact that our debt ceiling has not been raised. And finger pointing on both sides of the aisle, mostly the president pointing toward really not the entire House, just John Boehner. And I have to admit, I've not been following closely along, but what I read, of course, is that the Republicans are bending to the will of the far right, the Tea Partiers. To me, that almost seems like a convenient excuse. You mention the Tea Party, and then you don't have to mention the rest of the conservatives, the rest of the Republicans. You just focus on this one faction, try to demonize them, and, well, it just leaches onto the whole group. That's, I think, the mindset, but pretty crazy stuff. Let's see. I would like to hear from the gentleman at PJTV. That would be Scott Ott, Bill Whittle, and Andrew Klavan. They're going to talk to us in this segment of Afterburner and share their thoughts about this whole debt ceiling and closing of national parks and all that.
A group of aging World War II vets, and when I say aging, remember that D-Day was 69 years ago, so the absolute youngest veteran of that day is about 87 years old now. Well, these aging vets went to Washington to see the memorial dedicated to them, to the war that they fought. And when they got there, they found the Park Service had erected barricades around it, around an open-air memorial, because it was closed due to the shutdown. The open-air memorial was closed. I'm Steve Green, and this is the first trifecta in a special three-part series all week long, looking at the federal government shutdown from all the...
All right. Now, they're going to be looking, as he said, at the federal government shutdown. But, you know, when people make claims that this president tries to use his office to sometimes extract what he wants from the Senate or the House, that he punishes the American people. So if he makes it tough on us, then we'll turn around and talk to our people in Washington and say, hey, knock it off. Whenever these claims are made, people say, oh, no, the president doesn't do that. But here's a perfect example. The World War II veterans trying to go to an open-air exhibit. See, by that, when I say open air, that means there's no walls. There's no guardrails. There's nothing. It's open air. You can walk in and walk out. But, you know, because of the Republicans, the president said that, you know, the memorial had to be closed. So in order to close it, it took special effort to bring men and perhaps women in to erect these barricades that were normally not there. They actually spent money to put the barricades up. So when people say that this president tries to make it painful for the American people to extract things from us, when you get examples like what these guys are getting ready to talk about, you can see where that kind of thought process comes from.
Angles, or at least all the angles we can show you on a family-friendly network. Today, it's Shutdown Theater, or Washington's Theater of the Absurd. So let's bring on my family-friendly co-hosts, Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Well, half family-friendly. Scott, where does a government that shut down find the money to pay Park Service personnel to erect barricades to elderly veterans? No, wait. Where does a government find the gall to do that?
Well, yeah, that's the issue. The thought to me that my grandfather, who passed away 2 years ago this month, that my grandfather might have made a trip to Washington, D.C. in order to see the monument. Not the monument that the government built, the monument that was built almost entirely by private contributions, $197 million in private contributions, about $16 million of government money went into that thing. In fact, it took so long for them to build a memorial to that greatest generation of soldiers and sailors and Marines and merchant Marines and Coast Guard people. It's unbelievable that it took all those years to build it. And then it was built with contributions from many of those veterans themselves, who their government had just essentially forgotten about them. That he would have gone down there and been turned away. Frankly, my pop would not have put up with that. That he could have made a trip to Normandy, where I understand they've shut down the American-run museum over there. And after all his life, he finally did get a chance to go over to Normandy and stand on that beach and go to that museum if they had shut that down. These people are despicable. And by these people, I mean the Democrats in Congress, and I mean President Obama himself. This is unconscionable. And frankly, what does a park guard do at the World War II memorial? Does he go, hey, that's the granite there. Don't touch it with your bare hands?
There's never anybody there except for the tourists. It's ridiculous. All right, at Lake Mead, Ralph and Joyce Spencer, ages 80 and 77, they were evicted from their private home for the duration of the shutdown because, well, I guess because the Park Service could and because they were told to. Bill, this is a National Park Service doing this stuff. When did Park Service personnel, I mean, you think of guys in ranger hats, when did they become jackbooted thugs?
They became jackbooted thugs on January, what was it, 20th of 2009. Yep. That's when they became jackbooted thugs. Yeah. It's not a hard question to answer, Steve. This is imperial decree. This is rule by diktat. This is the emperor forcing a plague of frogs upon his subjects for having the audacity to put some limits on his behavior. How dare we tell this president that we are going to stop this out of control addictive spending? How dare the American people raise up and say there are going to be some limits on this through their elected representatives in the House of Representatives, the People's House? How dare they defy this man? And so it's the same thing we saw with the sequester. Remember the sequester? The sequester was going to be the end of the universe. We're still in sequester. The end of the universe. Not government cuts, not a government shutdown, a slowdown in the rate of growth. Catastrophic catastrophe for America. Well, there was no catastrophe for America. And this is the one thing that these control freak swine fear more than anything else, is the American people realizing just how superfluous almost all of them are, just how expensive this government is for supposedly the freest people in the world. Do you know that the government of the supposedly freest people in the world costs more money than the GNP of the second biggest economy in the world, China? It costs more to run the American government than China produces in a year. And that's a communist state. Honestly, what these people fear is the American people waking up to the fact that virtually 90%, maybe 95% of the tax money that they pay for government services are not used. And this is the thing that they cannot abide by. So we could have closed the national parks, or we could have furloughed the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary to the Department of Education's Inter-Office Communications Bureau. But no, we're going to lock our veterans out of their parks so that the American people will understand who the boss is, Steve. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's what it is. You know, and Bill, I'm glad you mentioned the sequester, because we went through this same kind of thing back in March with the sequester battle. Obama wanted his $83 billion back, and when Congress wouldn't give it to him, he closed the White House to tourists. He threatened to stop food inspections,
Air
and he even
traffic
put our
control.
own national security at risk by leaving one of our only 10 aircraft carriers tied up at dockside. Now, back then, I called it government by temper tantrum. The only thing that's changed this time around is that the big baby is throwing an even bigger fit. Don't let him get away with it, or he's just going to do it again. For Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, I'm Steve Green.
Well, there you go. There you go. The trifecta guys from PJTV and their thoughts about parts. One part of the governmental shutdown and how they're acing out those, they aced out those World War II vets. I know this might seem like a story that has been, maybe told too much, but it's a perfect example of the pain that this administration tries to inflict upon the people in order to exact their will. And that is not very democratic at all, you'd have to admit. 5:24 is the time, and I say we should take a quick look at Holland's hometown forecast because, well, weather is important to us here in West Michigan. And today is going to be a lovely day, lovely day. Look for mostly sunny skies with a high near 71. For tonight, mostly clear, low 46. And on Thursday, sunshine, high 72. Right now in Holland, it's 49 degrees under mostly clear skies. And you can get the latest weather forecast, well, right here in the internet world of Red's Place. But if you need it right away, just go to weather.com. All righty. So we're going to continue on with the political side of things here. I want to take a look at some news headlines and see what's going on around the world. Oh, here's an interesting one. This comes from Infowars.com. World War II vets to storm barricade surrounding the Iwo Jima monument. The reason why I laugh is because, number one, it's ridiculous that these veterans have to do that. Number two, these veterans are really old guys. And number three, would this administration have guards actually there and physically accost them? How far would this administration go to prove its point? Let me read here. Paul Joseph Watson from Infowars writes, the federal government has barred World War II Marine veterans from visiting the Iwo Jima monument near the Arlington National Cemetery this past Saturday, prompting North Country Honor Flight Executive Director Daniel Kafitz to ask protesters planning to attend a Million Vets March in D.C. on the same weekend to help remove the barricades. Honor Flight, which pays for veterans to visit war memorials, is the organization that made headlines last week after helping vets break through barricades to visit the World War II Memorial in D.C. The barricades were subsequently reinforced and then wired shut. Because it's really important to keep those veterans out. I mean, the debt ceiling, it hasn't been raised yet. We have to close some areas. But they're spending extra money to reinforce barricades. Well, let's see what's going to happen during that Million Vets March when they try to remove the barricades. Would Obama have the National Guard out there? Are we going to see the first instance of Big Brother going nuts? It's very possible, isn't it? Very possible. What else do we have here? Well, here's a good one. The government shutdown denies military families money for funerals. It's not that important to bury your dead. You know, the dead who have served this country and basically laid their lives down. Just hold off on their funerals until we can get Congress and John Boehner and those knuckleheads to, give us what we want. Julie Wilson, writing at Infowars.com. As if the public hasn't suffered enough from the government shutdown, which was initiated by unnecessary political antics, now the families of fallen soldiers are literally paying the price in an unimaginable way. The Washington Times reports that at least 5 families who have lost a family member in the never-ending war on terror over this past weekend have been denied their death benefits. Families of fallen soldiers typically receive a death gratuity of about $100,000 within 36 hours of the soldier's death. This government payout is meant to help families with funeral costs, transportation expenses, and serves as a transitional pay until the military survivor benefits kick in. It also allows the families to fly over the Del Dover Air Force Base and view the coffins of their loved ones as they're being unloaded. This latest cut in spending has provoked outrage, causing the nonprofit group Family Communications and Logistics for Luke's Wings, which offers assistance in viewing of their loved ones' caskets. Their manager, Jennifer Merger, says the members of the group were deeply saddened, of course, by the government's decision to cut funding for death benefits. I'd like to know who it is that makes these decisions. You know, if our country is being run the way it has in the past and the buck stops there at the president's desk, then we can assume that it is he who decides what programs should be continually funded through this, governmental shutdown and which ones should not. How you can do that to the veterans, how this country can continue to treat our veterans in such a disrespectful way is just beyond comprehension. The same president calls on these men and women to lay down their lives, and as the writer says, this never-ending war on terror, and then turn around and then show this kind of disrespect to their families. Don't you think that the military should be at the top of the priority list, during the governmental shutdown? Interesting. Very interesting. I will say one thing. I just read from the Holland Sentinel, from their online service, and this is some good news for some families. Where is that at? I just read where Head Start, Lakeshore Head Start, is going to stay open during the federal shutdown. My grandson, Landers, was attending the Head Start program there, and it certainly was a help for his father and for the other family members. And they thought that today was going to be the last day. But the nonprofit, which operates largely on federal grants, providing daycare and educational services for young children, was told last week that its assets had been frozen by the federal government. However, let me just continue reading here. The nonprofit, which administers the federal programs, found out Thursday, and notifications went out to parents. Head Start will use reserve funds to keep the doors open a couple of extra days so parents will have more time to find alternative care. But then, as I said, the story says that it's going to remain open. So that's a good thing. That's going to help some families out. It's 5:30 here in the internet world of Red's Place, and we're talking about the government shutdown. The president, I guess he was on television quite a bit yesterday. He must have had a press conference. Took a few questions at this news conference on the shutdown. Let's take a listen to some of that. Should be quite entertaining. Because rarely does this president, number one, take questions. He doles out information, but he rarely takes questions. And then the other sad part of this is the questions that he's usually asked by the press. They're not probing questions. They're not questions that most Americans want the answers to. Oftentimes they're kind of softballish. So hopefully this time folks will put him to the to task. 5:31 is the time. Just waiting for this computer screen to get out of the way so I can close it. All right, let's listen to what the president had to say.
This morning I had a chance to speak with Speaker Boehner, and I told him what I've been saying publicly, that I am happy to talk with him and other Republicans about anything. Not just issues I think are important, but also issues that they think are important. But I also told him that having such a conversation, talks, negotiations, shouldn't require hanging the threats of a government shutdown or economic chaos over the heads of the American people.
Now, I find that interesting that the
Think
president...
about it this way.
That was a very interesting statement that the president just made. He doesn't believe that this government shutdown should be held over the heads of the American people. And then we hear about the president putting fences around an open-air memorial. Do you see?
Talk with him and other Republicans about anything. Not just issues I think are important, but also issues that they think are important.
And what about the issues that the American people, the employers, think are important?
But I also told him that having such a conversation, talks, negotiations, shouldn't require hanging the threats of a government shutdown or economic chaos over the heads of the American people. Think about it this way. The American people do not get to demand a ransom for doing their jobs. You don't get a chance to call your bank and say, I'm not going to pay my mortgage this month unless you throw in a new car and an Xbox.
You know, isn't this amazing? Do you remember the last time, 2 times, 3 times that this president faced a debt ceiling? He pretty much says the same things over and over again. That would almost indicate that the problem is the same over and over again, but it's not. It's a worsening problem.
If you're in negotiations around buying somebody's house, you don't get to say, well, let's talk about the price I'm going to pay, and if you don't give me the price, then I'm going to burn down your house. That's not how negotiations work. That's not how it happens in business. It's not how it happens in private life. In the same way, members of Congress and the House Republicans in particular don't get to demand ransom in exchange for doing their jobs.
Nor does the president.
And 2 of their very basic jobs are passing a budget and making sure that America is paying its bills. They don't also get to say, you know, unless you give me what the voters rejected in the last election, I'm going to cause a recession. That's not how it works. No American president would deal with a foreign leader like this. Most of you would not deal with either co-workers or business associates in this fashion, and we shouldn't be dealing this way here in Washington.
I wonder if the president has considered the fact that the ideas that he is promoting are completely contrary to what the American people want. And as such, our representatives in Washington are sharing that thought. So if that's the case, then is it not the will of the people? I hear him talking so much about him, the Senate, and the House, and then talking about you and I kind of as a sidebar. You know, and that's not how it should be.
And, you know, I've heard Republicans suggest that, well, no, this is reasonable, this is entirely appropriate, but as I've said before, imagine if a Democratic Congress threatened to crash the global economy unless a Republican president agreed to gun background checks or immigration reform.
And I love how he weaves other parts of his platform into this conversation. It's amazing.
I think it's fair to say that Republicans would not think that was appropriate. So
we don't think it's appropriate that the Senate has yet to put forth a budget. But he never mentions that. Never.
Let's lift these threats from our families and our businesses, and let's get down to work. It's not like this is a new position that I'm taking here. I had Speaker Boehner and the other leaders in just last week. Either my chief of staff or I have had serious conversations on the budget with Republicans.
All right, I want to move ahead here and see if we can get to some of the
In the House of Representatives.
question and answer portion.
Precipitate another one. Now, the good news is over the past 3.5 years,
All right, just
semblance of credit or
There we go.
rather than Social Security.
here we go. Let's see if we can get to
have
a
is
question.
America's
It's 5:37, by the way.
This is not something we should even come close to fooling around with. And so when I read people saying, oh, this wouldn't be a big deal, we should test it out. Let's take default out for a spin and see how it rides. And I say, imagine in your private life if you decided that I'm not going to pay my mortgage for a month or two. First of all, you're not saving money by not paying your mortgage. You're just a deadbeat. And you can anticipate that will hurt your credit.
So I guess Obama is saying that those who are against raising the debt ceiling are deadbeats.
Which means that in addition to debt collectors calling, you're going to have trouble borrowing in the future. And if you are able
I just
to
want
borrow
to
in the
get
future,
one
you're gonna have to
question.
borrow at a
I just
higher
want to hear
rate.
one question.
Well, what's true for individuals is also true for nations, even the most powerful nation on earth. And if we are creating an atmosphere,
Men and women, and how would you go ahead and make that determination?
All right, never mind. That's not going to work. I should have listened to this maybe ahead of time to find out where the actual questions were, but since I'm not at a radio station, I don't have all the tools to be able to edit out things. So I'll try to do a better job in the future. Right now, let's quickly take a look at Holland's hometown forecast because I don't want to leave you hanging on that. It changes so rapidly here in Michigan that we need to stay on top of it. So at 5:38, let's take a quick look at Holland's hometown forecast. It's going to be a beautiful Wednesday, mostly sunny skies today with a high right around 71 degrees. This evening, look for mostly clear skies, lows dipping into the upper 40s. And for Thursday, sunshine, high 72. Right now in Holland, under mostly clear skies, it is 49 degrees. And if you need the latest forecast, just log on to weather.com. Weather.com. That's where you'll find it. Okay. I want to hear from syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. He says that if Obama wins on the shutdown, that he loses on the debt ceiling. Here he is talking on Fox News.
Columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, it looks like, or it sounded like, there was the beginning of an exit ramp that the president was saying, yes, he said, I'll agree to a short term, even very short term, to talk and do this negotiation.
I think he had to. I think that the dynamic here is clear. He wins on the shutdown of the government. He loses on the debt ceiling, and he is really afraid of that debt ceiling. He says he won't bend on this. Of course he'll have to at the 11th hour. He can't afford to be remembered as the first president who defaulted or allowed, a condition in which it can happen. So I think what he did and what we just heard in that soundbite was he pointed to an exit ramp for the speaker. He basically says, well, I said I won't negotiate while the debt ceiling's hanging over us, so you give me a 3-week extension. Boehner has said, I won't give in on this and give him a clean extension. So it won't be a clean extension of the debt ceiling. It'll be, I'll give you 3 weeks, but you got to give me a committee. He told how he wants it structured. 20 members, I'll give you the agenda. It'll be attached. So it will be a conditional extension. I think the president, he gets away and he finesses it. Boehner will finesse it. Now, whether it'll succeed or not, I have no idea. We know what happened the last time around. They had a super committee which didn't succeed. But that's the way in which you avoid the catastrophe from the president's perspective, and where you get what Boehner has said, all I want is negotiation, he would get it.
All right. Syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer putting it into perspective for us. And I believe there was one more video that I wanted to share with you. It's 5:41 here in the internet world of Red's Place, 49 degrees in downtown Holland. And I think that'll do it. The other videos I don't feel are going to advance the story, so we'll just let that go. I will share this with you. I'm not exactly sure. Well, I do know how I feel about it. I'm outraged, and I'd like to know what the genesis or the thought process behind this was. But according to Kit Daniels, a writer for Infowars.com, sixth graders at the Bryant School District in Arkansas were given an assignment to revise the outdated Bill of Rights by deleting and replacing two amendments using the War on Terror and the Patriot Act as a guide. For some reason, when I first read that paragraph, the word indoctrination, when it came into my head. The worksheet, which is the first constitutional assignment of the school year, tells students that they will be on a National Revised Bill of Rights task force. That has an Obama sound to it. Who will prioritize, prune, and add amendments for a revised Bill of Rights. The government of the United States is currently revising the Bill of Rights. The assignment states they have determined that it is outdated and may not remain in its current form any longer. The assignment assumes that our birthrights are not our property, which we inherently own as human beings, but are rather privileges granted to us by the state after being decided upon by a central planning committee. I was right. It doesn't sound very much like a democracy or the United States. Has a socialistic ring to it, does it not? And again, there's that word indoctrination bouncing around in my head. I'm sure that parents in this Bryant School District must be up in arms. You know, let me take this down because there's an interview. There is an interview. In Arkansas. Yeah, I got to call them. Talk to the superintendent of the schools and just say, excuse me, sir, what the heck are you thinking? Destroying the Bill of Rights? You know how impressionable young minds are, don't you? Then I will say them all. Say them all. Just like Monty Python. Say them all. Say them all. All right, time to get back to some music. I think that's enough for me on the political side. I can just get mired down in that and go all day long. But we want to ease back into the music. This is kind of the thing we can expect. You know, during my radio program in the 5 o'clock hour, I spent most of that time talking politics. And then after that, we got into more local fare. Well, I'll do the same here with the internet program. We'll start off that 5 o'clock hour with, you know, some politics, talk about some of the issues of the day, and then we'll transition back into music and then back into the fun. So this morning's musical transition piece comes from the group Earth, Wind & Fire from 1977. This one is called Fantasy, and you're hearing it in the internet world of Red's Place on the Lakeshore Disability Network. It's 5:45.